During a high school class project, my teacher told me it's unrealistic being a CEO. It's been my dream to be a CEO since I was 10, so I told her it is realistic. Follow me on my journey to learn what it takes to become a CEO.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Realistic CEO podcast. Today I'm here with Lenny. How you doing today, Lenny?
Doing great. How you feeling?
I'm doing great. Thank you for calling on today. Appreciate it.
Yeah, glad to be here.
Thank you.
I'm excited and I'm proud of you for all the great work you're doing.
Thank you. So the first question I want to ask you is, can you tell us a little bit about your business?
Yeah, so I founded Underwood Photography 20 years ago. I was in college. Before that, it was a hobby when I was in high school. And then my sophomore year in college is when I started to really develop my skills with photography and my confidence. The issue, though, just when it comes to being unrealistic CEO, my family was telling me to get a real job. So they did not see this as a viable career. They felt as though I'm in college for something totally different. Why would you want to pursue something like that? My grandmother told me, oh, do that in your free time after work or on the weekends, nothing fully committing to it. So at the time when I did finish undergrad, I went on to pursue the master's degree because I had that mindset of going and working for a CEO for a nonprofit. And so I did try a couple years working in higher education. I've always enjoyed working in public school education for many years. Even still, at times I substitute teach in the public schools. That's been over 20 years, since 19. But knowing I had other things that were calling my attention and that I enjoyed even more or just as much. So with that business, it turned into full-time 12 years ago in 2012. And then throughout my time as a photographer, I developed my personal training skills. So I became a personal trainer. That's more of a hobby though. 15 years ago, I became certified. And then I had a dream one night 10 years ago in 2014 that I owned a sock line. Woke up the next morning, told a friend about it, thought it was a great idea, but have never worked in retail before, even till this day, and didn't have all the answers to cultivate that business dream. But through talking to people and doing my own personal research, pursuing startup programs, that gave me more confidence to pursue that dream, which happened 2 years after having the dream in 2016. So this is 8 years old now.
So can you tell us a little bit about like how you're able to see it through when you had people in your corner telling you that you have to go find a real job? How are you able to make sure that you saw through with your vision?
Yeah, it was not easy because when you have people that you really respect telling you this is the path that you need to take. Even my grandmother, she owned a beauty salon, and I think she just, in a way, I'm more proud of you if you go. And I told my friends that you have a full-time job, you have benefits, and I think it was a fear factor, but I knew that I was called to do other things beyond that. And being true to myself, I think, was the key to all of that and being fulfilled. I'm often telling people the money will come. So finding what you're really passionate about and doing a great job, no matter what it is, naturally you'll see things through and continue to develop your skills and be better than you were the day before.
So how were you able to go from working part-time as a photographer to turn into your full-time job?
Yeah, so it's the LBW. Putting in the work, a lot of networking, I would say. Back when I started, I always carried, and I still do carry, business cards. When I first started, I knew nothing about properly marketing myself. So the business card had a photo of me on it, my name, my address, which I wouldn't have now, and my phone number. And so it was a way for people to identify who I was. It didn't have my business name, but just my point of contact. And so whenever I would go somewhere, meet someone, I would give out my business cards. Social media wasn't really a thing back in 2004 or 5. MySpace was out, Facebook was just developing, but it really wasn't used for business purposes back then. So I just knew the importance of, and even still to this day, I see the value in cultivating on a local level in that way. And resources like LinkedIn now exist, and of course, Facebook and other social media platforms, but there's so much value in that. And so that is how I developed my appreciation for being able to garner relationships with people, especially since I'm in the service providing industry, with providing photography services. And with Upscale Socks, it's a little different since I'm required to meet customers from all over. I had to attack that a little differently when it came to marketing.
So why is networking important?
It's vital to grow whatever you're trying to promote. It's a form of advertising. Having a really good personal brand, I think, is key too. So even for you, as you're developing as a young adult, working with all of these CEOs in the Pioneer Valley has shown us that it doesn't matter what age you are. You can market. If you have the confidence, you can market anything, right? If you have the background and the knowledge of whatever the product is, then you can make that happen and see the full result of what you're aiming for. I know for me, when I was in college I minored in business, so I was able to learn some of the components of what it takes to be a business owner, but not fully see myself at that moment in that long-term path, because once again, I was still thinking working for a nonprofit or in the education world full-time, but knowing, and as you said, what is the importance of marketing, not just beyond business, but just in general, marketing a back to school event, knowing how you're going to attract new customers or who will be there at the event, finding multiple forms of advertisement beyond just social media. But is it interpersonal? Is it through word of mouth? Is it via phone? Using all of the different angles is key.
You talked about relationships and how important it is. Like, why is making sure that you're building a good relationship with your customers important?
I think oftentimes the customer will hire you or like you before they even need or want your product. Oftentimes people throughout my journey of meeting people, they'll remember meeting me and saying, one day I'm going to hire you because I appreciate what you're doing or what you provide, who you are. So having those connections are key. It may not happen instantly, but over time you'll see when that will transpire, especially if you're in something for the long run. We may not work together for 5 years, but I may remember meeting you and our interaction, but eventually it'll come to, fruition when it's meant to be.
But I want to talk a little bit about that dream that you had to starting with Socks Company. Like, how did that happen?
Yeah, I rarely remember dreams at night. I don't know if you remember your dreams nightly or often, but I rarely do. I don't remember the last time I remember my dream, but this was summer of 2014. Woke up. It was very vivid. It wasn't anything but socks that I was selling. Didn't remember all of where I was going with the socks, if it was just online, if it was in person, but I was designing them. I could see some of the designs and colors that were in the dream as well. But both of them, I told a friend about it who was local at the time. We thought about going into business together, but he had never owned a business, so he was more, I would say, cautious when it came to spending. Versus me, I would say I'm more of a risk taker. I'm not wild with spending or anything, but I would say, let's do it. Let's go for it and pursue whatever thoughts I have. And for 2 years, I toiled with the idea because I was already full-time working as a photographer. I was already busy. Didn't know how I was going to finance this business. I knew I didn't want to go into any debt, so I self-funded. Knew I didn't want to be a slave to the business, so I said I'm not going to be up all night designing or stitching and sewing socks in my basement and then trying to sell them during the day. So I'm going to find a really reliable, great manufacturer to provide that service for me. And like I said, take my time, but have fun ultimately, because you don't want to pursue something that may be a great idea and lucrative, but you're unfulfilled and burnt out. So I'm going to take my time. I'm going to enjoy the journey and see how it goes. It's been great to see how organically doors open and how people think it's a cool idea, and the interest that has been birthed out of Upscale Socks, and not just socks, but being able to award scholarships to local graduating high school seniors for 5 years. And then throughout the holiday season, we'll donate socks to local nonprofits as well as schools. Just like you trying to make a footprint, you're leading the way, but I'm just doing my little part in the corner.
The one thing you talked about, you said you're a risk taker. So like, why is it important to make sure that you're taking risk when you're trying to start your own business?
Because I think ultimately the business is bigger than you are. Mm-hmm. So sometimes if you don't take a risk, it'll just stay right where it is without taking a big leap of faith. And sometimes it's a faith walk that we're on. We may not know what it's going to look like when we drive downtown to the gym, but we're taking a risk of getting on the road. But, a storm may come, or an accident, a dog may cross in front of you, whatever. But just like life, I think there's risk with business, and financial or personal risk. Oftentimes I hear business owners say they don't have time for their business idea, or they neglect it because of life happening. But I think it's important to take the risk, because as we know, and I'm sure you say, wow, I'm already 19. 18. You're like, wow, I'm almost on my teens. So time flies. So if we don't take the risk, then we'll look back and say, man, I should have pursued this when I was 18 or 17. And now I'm 35 and I have a mortgage and a family and don't have time. Back to the time thing. So it's important to take the risk or pursue it if it's in your head. And I think you'll have that feeling because it may bug you for a while as to when and how to make it happen. And these days, the benefit is there's so many business programs to really support you and your idea and your vision that you have. Back 20 years ago, not so much, but now I feel as though there's so much support.
So one thing you talked about when you said you started your socks company, you wanted to make sure that you weren't in debt. It's like, how are you able to make sure that you had the funding to the point where you can start your business, but you also didn't have to be paying back your money as well?
Yeah, I just started slow. I did my research. I had a really good checklist as to what I thought the business would need and require. I wasn't so concerned about needing a storefront and having staff. And I said, eventually, if it's meant to be, I'll get to that level of having. Actually, my vision is not to have my own personal storefront, because I know what that would require, that with staffing and being open every day. And that's not really the vision I have for my life. I enjoy doing other entrepreneurial jobs throughout the day. And once again, hate to use the word being a slave, but I like being free and enjoying a variety of things. So with the financing, I just knew, okay, if I can fund this myself, I'll just do as much as I can. And by the grace of God, I've been successful in that. But as I mentioned, starting slow and knowing what it took to start Underwood Photography and the startup costs with that, and the equipment cost, and just maintaining a viable business, I just translate that into Upscale Socks. I'd like to give a shout out to my mom, though. Back in 2004, when I started officially Underwood Photography, I had several challenges the week of my first wedding. Had a flood in basement. I was still living at home. I had my grandmother pass away. Car broken into. They sold my camera on my backseat. 10 a.m. meeting I was having. I went to prayer service on a Tuesday, and someone said, I'm getting married soon. I need a photographer. I'd love to hire you. I said, unfortunately, my camera was stolen this week. I don't know if I have a camera that I can borrow or will be able to afford a new camera. So she said, okay, let me know. And so I asked my mom. She was able to buy me one that week. It was Black Friday. And so that was perfect, because I probably would have had to finance a camera, which wasn't my goal, being a college student and having other responsibilities and getting whatever else replaced that they stole out of my car. And I think through insurance, my window was fixed, but just all of that happening all at once can be an emotional roller coaster. So just in business and life, things will happen that you don't have control over, and it may interrupt or disrupt or may really cause you to feel discouraged. I think about people that had natural disasters where everything's stolen or taken from them and they have to start all over to zero. So I didn't feel like I had to start all over again with the loss of my primary camera, but it was certainly a challenge. But thankfully, like I said, shout out to my mom, I was able to get right back into the saddle. And so that was the genesis officially of Underwood Photography.
So how were you able to take the skill that you learned from your photography business into your socks business?
Certainly when it comes to social media with the different posts that required, I feel, as providing a clothing product to market on social media, as well as on my website, I'm able to document all of the different styles of socks there so that the customer can know what the item looks like. So being able to utilize the gifts that I was given in that way versus having to hire someone has been really great. Initially, when I started providing videos, I would film them myself as well. But I don't have a love for video, so hiring someone that is passionate about that form of digital media has been required, just like with maintaining website. I do some of that maintenance, but transferring those skills or hiring someone that could provide that service as well. But having at least some insight, I think, is key so that you're not relying solely on someone unless they're a full-time or on a retainer.
Can you tell us like a little bit about the similarities and differences from owning two of separate type of businesses?
Yeah. So at times I feel like they're really totally different. As you asked about my photography skills with my stock line, certainly at times like that, they coexist and there's a need where they're in sync. But I am expanding Upscale socks and rebranding currently. There'll be even more synergy moving forward with other accessories that I'll be providing. And then I have a nonprofit idea that is hopefully launching next year that I'll let the public know at some point. But unfortunately, they're not always in sync. And so I'm required to put on my hat and think differently when it comes to, I guess, being creative with creating a sock design. Although I'm inspired by a lot of what I see whenever I'm photographing. Let's say a wedding or certain color patterns, or if I'm driving around the city and I see a certain mural, I love a pattern that I may see. In a way, you can say there's an intermingle or a connection, but not always.
Like, what's like your thought process behind when you're designing your own socks?
Yeah, I get a lot of ideas in the shower, to be honest. It's probably very tranquil, like quiet for me. Peaceful. Some still come in dreams, believe it or not. Sometimes someone will share a tip. I was speaking at Camp Atwater last month, and a young camper came up to me and said, "Have you thought about having camping socks?" So we were brainstorming for about 5 minutes, and I gave my business card and I said, "Send me an email and we can talk more about it." But I got a lot of great ideas from him, and I was able to create design out of what we shared. I'm still waiting on his email to come so that he can take ownership of that idea, but they come in several different forms. So, and which is great, because if, let's say, you have an idea, it's community based as well, not just coming from me, but I'm saying I'm working with the community. And actually, when I had the idea to start the business, I partnered with partner. They designed probably over 50 styles with all the students in design and visual and graphics. And so it's a sock design contest. And the winner received a pair of each of the socks to design. And it ended up being the same student with the 3 socks that I went with, 3 designs. Yeah, it's been really cool to offer those types of opportunities, hopefully more to come in the future.
What was it about the sock gene that you had, like out of any other type of gene, to make sure that you wanted to start that socks business?
It kept bugging me. I couldn't let it go. It just kept coming to mind. I kept trying to figure out how I can get started. I would ask people at conferences, "Can you help me out with this idea? How do I find a manufacturer?" And it was still a big secret, I would say. People really didn't want to share any insight or never would follow through. I would meet someone and they would say, speak to this person. They're fluent in Mandarin, Chinese, and nothing would materialize. So I just knew with this idea of wanting to go full throttle with it, I needed to take my time, as I said, and really be patient because it kept annoying me or bugging me and didn't want time to pass. So I created a timeline so that I can launch it by Christmas of 2016. And so right on time for the holiday season.
So you talked about when you first started the sock business, you brought this idea to your friend, and like you guys feel like he was more like didn't want to take a big risk versus you wanted to be a big risk taker. So like, how are you guys able to find a balance in between that?
Yeah, once I kind of started to see he wasn't all in, I just said, I'll just figure it out on my own and take my time and not worry about who's behind me, if you will, because I probably won't say who, but people will say a lot of things like, oh, the people following you are just your friends from Facebook. Are you going to find new customers because everybody's already bought the socks? So people will always whisper certain thoughts in your head and make you feel as though you're inadequate or you're not as good as the person that you're competing with or a sock line that's been in existence for longer. But knowing that you're called to do this type of work and that you're having a good time and you're making a difference is my goal always.
So when you had people coming up saying the thing that they were saying to you about your sock business, what was it about those comments that like you're just able to brush off? Otherwise, like maybe because somebody else can get those same type of comments and then just like that, their business is over because like they're getting hate. How were you able to keep on going?
Yeah, being in business so long, at that point, it was 12 years in business. So I'm here for it. I'm used to feedback and working with anxious brides or irate 18-year-old, whatever the case is when it comes to different personalities or the demand of working for a corporate company or requirements of producing every day for a client. So it's okay. I think that comes with maturity too. And knowing that you're called beyond, and that's just one person. So if you're dealing with maybe one irate customer out of 18 months, then you're doing okay. Or even if it's once a month, then you can't let that small percentage dampen your light and forget what you're called to do.
So what is some advice that you would give to an 18-year-old that wants to start their own business?
Yeah, I would say be consistent. Oftentimes while I'm mentoring a business, they will start off strong, they're motivated, they're inspired, but then 8 months later, there's no activity on social media. You'll call them, hey, how's everything going? Are you still doing what you're doing? I got a new job and my hours changed. I'm not really available to I want to do it, but not the same level because of the conflict I have. I think that's why it's so important to write things down. As I mentioned earlier, I documented what I need to do. I'm a task master, so everything that I need to fulfill in a day is on my calendar, and it's so I can show up on time and be ready. But I do realize not everyone's like that. So at 18 or at 38 or 68, if you have a goal for starting a business and being a really good business owner, you have to show up and present your best so that your customer or the service you're providing to that person is happy with the results.
What has been like your favorite experience so far from owning your own photography company and owning your own size company?
I would say for photography would be probably destination weddings or destination events or being a part of anyone's special big day that then trusts me to provide the service for them that will last a lifetime is always rewarding. People often asking, what do I like to do for fun? Not a whole lot, because I spend most of my weekends, if not every weekend, and some weekdays partying because I'm at someone's happy occasion. So wedding anniversaries, 60th birthday parties, Jack and Jill's. So I'm vicariously living through their happy moments, right? documenting things and act that's happening in real time. I would say those are the highlights of my life with photography, but also not only that, watching, okay, I did their 40th, then their 50th, and then moving up to their 60th birthday. So being a part of their life in a way too. Or they got married, then they had children, their daughter's turning 10. So seeing all of these segments of their life happen is great. And then they're inviting me to document events at their job and being a part of, or refer me, I would say, as well. And then with Upscale Socks, being able to attend conferences, being invited to attend conferences to share or speak, being considered to be on the Realistic CEO podcast is a highlight because honestly, I was behind the camera for all these years before the pandemic, to be honest. A lot of my interviews started happening back in 2020 and up to now. But before that, it was unrealistic to be in front of the camera. Not that I didn't foresee it coming, but I probably can count how many times. And not that people, although I was interviewed with like magazines and alumni journals, but not to this magnitude. So that's, I would say, been the highlight. And it's been great because I'm challenging myself to step outside my comfort zone where, as I said, my comfort zone is probably being behind the camera, conducting from that lens, if you will, that angle. But warming up to it, and I think my time as a substitute teacher has helped with public speaking and building confidence, but we're all on this journey to grow and to hopefully be better as we get older.
So talking about getting out of your comfort zone, why is it important to make sure that you're stepping outside of your comfort zone?
So we can grow. As I shared, I think, as I said, this is unforeseen 5 years ago in 2019 before the pandemic. But I always say yes. So I figure out all the other answers later on. So when people say, oh, can you come and do this? You know, I'll take a deep breath and I'll respond and say, absolutely, yes. And I'll sort out all the other answers later. So all times when I'll have to speak at a conference or a group of young people, I always think about myself in their shoes. So how can I make it interesting? Think about all the different learners and people that are in that audience, not just hearing you speak, but how can you make it interesting and memorable even? I can remember when I was a student at Duggan Middle School at the time, middle school, not academy, the speakers that came for junior achievement. And some weren't always that insightful, but I always try to lock in and pay attention. So I think just like you said, outside comfort zone, remembering good speakers even, or people that are making impact in their own way and leaving them with something like a takeaway. I like bearing gifts too, like you do when you show up, because people deserve it. And you know, and why not? To whom much is given, much is required.
So I got a couple more questions that I want to ask you. So how are you able to balance your work life and family life as well?
Yeah. At times it's hard. A lot of people that are not entrepreneurs may not understand the life of a business owner because it's hard to turn it off, especially when you had deadlines. I was sharing with someone last week how this social media age, every day I'm required to produce and get it to my client by that next morning because they want to post on social media to share what occurred, right? The night before or the day before. So a lot of aggressive deadlines. And not only that, you're now preparing for what's happening that day as well. So if you're working and if you're not taking care of your health and your family, then what is it all worth? What's the point if you're just really working to pay your bills or you're not really enjoying yourself and spend that time? Although currently my family is on a cruise and they're coming back Sunday, and I did not get a chance to go on this 8-day cruise because I had work already on my schedule, right? And they really want to go and have a good time. Send me pictures. I'll live vicariously through those photos, and my time will come, hopefully. I do get my days in when I can. And once again, that's the work I do. I enjoy it. So it's work, but it's fulfilling and it's purposeful and it's not It can be long. Was it long, boring word? Lonely. I always forget the lonely part. It can be lonely and long and boring, but it's very exciting too.
The last question I want to ask you is, what's one fun fact about yourself that like nobody really knows about?
That I was prom king. I don't know if I have a picture here, but I do have. I was prom king. I was on Wheel of Fortune. People probably know that one. So I like challenging myself. I like at times stepping outside of my comfort zone, doing things that are unexpected, memorable. I like skydiving. That's probably another thing. Or I like adventure. I have a love-hate to running. I'm not at a half marathon yet. Actually, I am. I have run on my own. But maybe one day I'll do an Ironman or some version of it on my own. But I'm going to take up swimming soon. I know how to swim, but I don't consistently swim. So I would say fitness. I'm addicted to fitness. I don't love it, but I think I'm addicted, if that makes sense. I like results and the challenge that it brings me.
Thank you.
So maybe some of those things are things that people may not know.
Yeah. Thank you for coming on today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you guys for watching this episode of the Realistic CEO Podcast. See you guys in the next one. Peace.